All eyes on the Lone Star State. The Senate seat is up for grabs as a veteran incumbent faces his toughest primary yet. Redrawn maps are shaking up Congress, while a wide-open race for Attorney General transforms the power structure in Austin. The polls, the players, the path to victory. This is Battleground, Texas.
Hello, I'm Greg Grugan. Let's get started with the most recent headlines in Texas politics this week. First up, Cornyn's war chest versus Paxton's base. Incumbent Senator John Cornyn has reported record-breaking fundraising numbers this week. His campaign is using the cash advantage to launch a barrage of ads targeting Attorney General Ken Paxton's past legal and personal baggage. This week, Cornyn also introduced a no-mercy bill to close what he calls a dangerous loophole in federal immigration law. It would classify any DUI offense committed by an undocumented immigrant that results in death or serious injury as an aggravated felony, triggering immediate deportation and a permanent bar on re-entry. Paxton's campaign issued a blistering statement labeling the bill, quote, political theater, designed to save Cornyn's career rather than secure the border. Hunt argued that while the bill is good in isolation, it is a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Now, for the dumbs, I'm talking about the Democrats, the week's big headline is just wait and see. While Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and State Representative James Tallarico are currently running positive messages, the intensity is expected to ramp up ahead of their first scheduled debate on January 24th. And the final big headline of the week, the Dallas domino effect. The Senate race has triggered major shifts in local congressional districts. This week, Reverend Frederick Haynes officially kicked off his campaign to succeed Crockett in District 30. This move clearly underscores the high stakes of Crockett's Senate gamble. Now let's bring in my colleagues Stephen Dial in Dallas and Rudy Koski in Austin. Rudy, some juicy developments there. What piques your fancy?
You know, Greg, this is like a high school dance with a lot of romantic rivals getting in everybody's chase, a lot of elbows, a lot of people stomping on other people's feet right now. So, yeah, things are heating up. You know, we had some interesting developments of note here in Austin that popped up over the past few days. Governor Abbott saying that the state will help the feds root out fraud in housing assistance programs. The Austin Police Department saying it will comply with the state law that mandates local authorities to cooperate with federal immigration officials. And one that could have some lasting political legs, the Texas House Democrats posting big donation numbers in the latest campaign finance report. No surprise that the bulk of the haul came right out of that special session walkout, Greg.
All right, Stephen, I'm guessing lots of activity in the Metroplex ahead of the primary. What's grabbed your attention?
Yeah, definitely. So Freddie Haynes, well-known Dallas pastor, who is the pastor of Jasmine Crockett, officially kicking off his campaign for Congress to replace her. That seat is a safe Democrat seat, so he likely could be the next member of Congress. Of course, the Crockett-Tallarico back and forth. No negative ads just yet, no negative talk. We'll have to see if the knives come out during that debate.
Okay, and now to the three-way Republican battle for U.S. Senate, where Congressman Wesley Hunt wants every single primary voter in Texas to know he's ready to debate anytime, anywhere, and that his two older opponents are dodging a face-to-face confrontation. Congressman Wesley Hunt, you are the only candidate for U.S. Senate willing to debate before the people of Texas. You've been very clear about that. The other two candidates are not stepping up. Your reaction?
Well, I've offered debates to my two opponents, and they have turned them down. I've offered 3 debates, actually, to be exact. None of them chose to accept that. I've also offered a debate to Jasmine Crockett last month. She also declined. And so the question is, well, why would you want to decline? Why would you not want to take this message to the people of Texas to let them know who their candidates are, what the stances are, and what they believe?
Do you believe John Cornyn and Ken Paxton are afraid to face you on the debate stage?
Well, you know, again, it's just time for new leadership. And the contrast that you would see between me and those two gentlemen, it's actually quite obvious. Look, I think the people of Texas really want to see this next level, this next generation step into the breach and take on the mantle. John Cornyn first entered politics when I was 2 years old. He has been a senator for 24 years old. Thank you for your service, sir. It is time for new blood. Ken Paxton has been around for decades decades as well. It's time for new blood. There's a reason why President Trump has a 41-year-old vice president. He has a 53-year-old Secretary of State. The Secretary of War is in his mid-40s. Why is that? Because he understands that the future of this party lies in those that are in our age group to take this on for the next generation, and that's exactly why I chose to give up my seat to be that person.
I covered this campaign, and I know you've concentrated your fire on the incumbent, not so much on Paxton. Why is that?
Well, because what we know is that 75% of the primary voter does not want to see John Cornyn return. And the bottom line is that we have to understand where the electorate is. President Trump just won Texas by 15.7 points. People want an America, a young America First patriot, and that just hasn't been John Cornyn. There's a reason why he hasn't got President Trump's endorsement. There's a reason why we are in this position. There's a reason why a guy like me that's been around for 3 years is performing so well. And that's because people just want another option, and it's time for us to move on. It is that simple.
Okay, you've said in the past that it's up to the voters to decide on the Paxton character issues. Well, Wesley Hunt, you're a voter. Do you have problems with how he's handled his mortgage and the allegations of fraud? Do you have problems the way he treated his staff? Do you have any problems with how he's conducted his personal life in terms of his marriage?
What I can talk about is how I've conducted my personal life. What I can talk about is how I've conducted my staff. What I can talk about is how people can look at me over the course of the past 30 years, 20, 30 years of my life, my service to this great nation, my fact that I attended West Point, flew 55 combat air missions in Baghdad, and I have not been engaged in really any scandal. But it's not about me to articulate that. It's about the people of Texas to understand exactly what that means. It's up to me to tell people that here is an option of somebody that's going to vote like a real conservative for the next 10 years, who is in his early 40s, and you know that there is no baggage. Now, am I going to indict somebody on their own personal life? That's up to God to decide and the people. It's up to me to give the people of Texas an option.
Okay, we know your history. You faced ground-to-air machine gun fire, RPGs. You're also taking incoming from the other candidates right now. Is it bothering you?
That doesn't bother me at all, and this is the reason why being combat tested is so important. It doesn't bother me at all. What it actually tells me is that we are right over the target zone. If they weren't attacking me, then guess what? I wouldn't be in a good position. Keep in mind that Jasmine Crockett was created in a lab to lose a general election in the great state of Texas. I'm sorry, James Tallarico is not going to be the next senator from Texas. Wesley Hunt is, because the people of Texas are going to realize we want somebody who is young, we want somebody who is a servant, we want somebody that believes in this great nation and is willing to die for it. They want somebody who was born and raised in the great state of Texas, who loves this state, who bleeds Texas. And the second that people see that as an option here, we're going to be just fine, Greg.
A boatload to unpack there when Battleground Texas returns on the other side of this. Congressman Wesley Hunt throwing down the debate gauntlet, picking it up and throwing it down again with incumbent John Cornyn and contender Ken Paxton, more or less ignoring the challenge. Stephen, what's your take here? Will it matter? Should it matter?
Will them not doing the debate matter in the grand scheme of things? No. Cornyn's not going to debate Wesley Hunt without Ken Paxton. We all know, or I'll at least speak for myself, Ken Paxton's not going to do a debate. It does not help him, and he might not be a good debater. We don't know that really. So does it help Wesley Hunt that they aren't doing debates? No.
All right, Rudy, Wesley Hunt playing the youth card hard, suggesting Cornyn and Paxton are ready for the old folks' home and need to step aside for a new generation of leadership, namely him. How do you think that will play?
Well, it's certainly a good pivot by Hunt. Most of his punches have been thrown at Cornyn while appearing to be hanging out in the corner for Ken Paxton. Now, there is an argument that cozying up with Paxton, not throwing punches at him, at all those character flaw problems, has hurt Hunt. Can't sleep with the political pig pen, in that political pig pen, without getting some stink on you. Right, Greg?
All right, Stephen, I know you spoke to Hunt recently, and he's clearly sticking to his strategy of concentrating fire on Cornyn and throwing no punches at Paxton's litany of character-related blunders. What's your read on that?
Yeah, I asked him that when he came up here to campaign in North Texas. He said he is trying to show the differences between the sitting incumbent. That's his reasoning, and he also explained to you his reasoning of not trying to get into people's personal lives. He's going to have to throw haymakers at both if he wants to really start making up some ground.
Quickly, Rudy, do you think that Hunt inherits the odd man out their voters if he makes the runoff?
Well, I agree with Stephen. He's got to throw some haymakers. I'm not convinced that Hunt can make the playoffs, but he could be the Indiana Hoosier in this race. Greg?
All right. We'll have more of Battleground Texas on the other side of this break. Time now to revisit the Republicans in the Senate primary. Cornyn has really tried to downplay that there may be any threat from Representative Hunt. But check out this ad likening Hunt to Democrat Jasmine Crockett, put out by Texans for John Cornyn.
Fake MAGA Wesley Hunt is calling for a debate with Democrat Jasmine Crockett. But what exactly are they debating? They both stand for DEI.
George Floyd was actually born in Houston, Texas, and we had a protest in Houston, Texas, my hometown, in my city.
It's because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country.
They both think gas-powered cars are a problem.
It's an issue where we have to marry economic.
Now to some social media. Let's go to X. Wesley Hunt reacted to a Politico post that said the president would not endorse in the Senate race by posting, quote, odd, considering that for months John Cornyn told voters, donors, and members of the press that the president would be endorsing him. Then Senator Cornyn dug in on Hunt's absence in Washington, posting, quote, the Trump agenda is in jeopardy because Wesley Hunt doesn't show up to work. For the third week this year, Hunt has failed to show up to vote.
Well, Ken Paxton was also at it. He went after Cornyn and his role in probing Biden-era refugee programs, posting, John Cornyn joined the Democrats to beg the Biden administration to allow unvetted Afghan nationals to flood into Texas and our nation. He shouldn't be leading the investigation. He should be the subject of it.
And the Democrats took no aim at one another, choosing instead to highlight high turnout at their campaign events. James Tallarico posting that he held a town hall in Collin County up here in North Texas, which Trump won by double digits, and 2,000 people showed up. And Jasmine Crockett retweeted a post showing a full campaign event for her in San Antonio.
Yeah, joining us for this segment of Battleground, the ever-brilliant Mark Jones, political analyst at Rice University. On the Democratic side of the Senate race, Emerson has some new polling. Let's dive in on the latest numbers that come to us from Emerson College. Among the Democrats, something of a stunner. They have State Representative James Tallarico surging ahead at 47%, with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett trailing at 38%. Now, on the Republican side of the ledger, Emerson has Ken Paxton leading at 26%, John Cornyn right behind at 25%, and Wesley Hunt polling at 16% with a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. Okay, Mark, tell us what, if anything, you make of those numbers.
Well, the Democratic numbers do look a little off in the sense that while Tallarico likely has caught up to Crockett a little bit because in December he was still not that well known by about 1 in 4 Democratic primary voters, I don't think he would have jumped ahead of her by such a large margin, but polling in primaries is difficult. I think what we can say is that we have a very close and competitive race on the Democratic side, with Tallarico and Crockett doing their best to gain the support of Democratic primary voters. Tallarico, I think, has been more aggressive and more active campaigning and advertising, and I think that's bearing some fruit.
What about on the Republican side? Close with Hunt back there 10 points behind.
Well, pretty much all polls are showing something that's very similar. That is that Cornyn and Paxton are deadlocked, usually with Paxton having a slight advantage and Hunt's trailing, and they tend to differ by the margin at which Hunt is trailing. I think we're going to see Wesley Hunt, though, get much more negative on Senator Cornyn between now and the March 3rd primary, because his real strategy in this race is to leapfrog Cornyn and get into that runoff against Ken Paxton, where he believes he has a good chance of winning in the May runoff. Cornyn has the difficult position that even if he wins in March, he has to go face Paxton in the rarefied environment of a May Republican primary runoff, where voters tend to be very conservative and tend to like Ken Paxton.
All right, Stephen, this Emerson poll should be a wake-up call for Team Crockett, because if they are accurate predictions of a cakewalk, look, those are all out the door.
Right, and I don't know if the Crockett campaign thinks that it'll be a cakewalk for them. Who knows what's said behind closed doors, but they know, and this poll will reiterate that, that they're going to have to go out and earn the vote, right? Jasmine Crockett just got a tour bus and started going to different cities in South Texas last weekend, going to be in East Texas next week, and so they know that they have to do something. Now, this will give some momentum for the Tallarico camp, because this is a poll that they can campaign on and say, look, we made up ground. Now, if you're talking to me, Stephen Dial, I don't know if those numbers, I don't think that the race just flipped totally from the polling that we talked about at the end of December compared to this poll, but it does give Tallarico some campaign momentum.
What do you think of that, Rudy? This kind of polling could add some much-needed fuel to Tallarico's fundraising effort, which will be critical in the month and a half to come. Agree, disagree?
No, I totally agree. I think that the Tallarico campaign is going to jump all over this poll and hit the donor ATM and say, look, we're legitimate. We're winning, and this one snapshot is showing you right now. It's not just an opportunity just to anoint Jasmine Crockett as the nominee. And so I think it's also a little bit of maybe some voter fatigue that's been going on. I think with all the controversy that's been happening over the past several weeks, I think people are just getting tired of politics right now and would like to listen to that one calming voice. And as we all have pointed out, James Tallarico is a really nice guy. You may not agree with his politics, and pretty much his politics align with Jasmine Crockett, but he's a lot more even-tempered as opposed to Jasmine Crockett, who just throws hand grenades right and left. So this may be a little bit of voter fatigue reflecting in the polls. But Mark, let me bring you back in. One of the things on the GOP side is that big undecided number. Right now, it's Senator Undecided who is the front runner. That's the big wild card, isn't it?
I mean, there are some undecided voters out there. Often, though, those are some people who either don't turn out to vote or are leaning one way or the other. But I think what it does suggest is that there's certainly enough voters out there for Hunt to garner their support and leapfrog Cornyn and get into that second place and go into the May primary against Paxton.
Hey, Mark, I want to ask you this. Oh, go ahead, Rudy.
I was just going to say, following up on that, and that's the big question, does this big undecided block show up in a runoff? And I think I agree with you, Mark. That's not the case. Only the true believers show up in a runoff.
Yeah, Mark, I wanted to ask you, are you surprised at Hunt's hands-off strategy when it comes to the Paxton character issues?
No, really not at all, because what Hunt wants to do here is go after John Cornyn. His enemy between now and March 3rd is Senator Cornyn. Once, if he can get into the runoff and defeat Cornyn and push him out of it, then he will pivot to Paxton. But I think his message will probably be much more softer, because at the end of the day, conservative voters in Texas like Paxton, particularly those voted in May, they just may be concerned about his ability to win in the general election. And so the dynamics of that campaign will hinge heavily on who wins the Democratic primary. If it's Jasmine Crockett, people are going to be less concerned about Ken Paxton losing in November. If it's James Tallarico, then that argument that Paxton is vulnerable may carry more sway.
Mark, Team Hunt suggests that if they can just sneak into the runoff, they will inherit the lion's share of voters that supported the odd man out. Is that a solid strategy?
They're either going to inherit those voters, or those voters are going to stay home in the May runoff. I don't think many Cornyn voters are going to switch to vote for Ken Paxton in a May runoff.
Hey, Stephen, are you seeing more activity, more visits up in the DFW area from the statewide candidates real quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this past week, I got a chance to talk to Wesley Hunt. James Tallarico had a rally up here. Of course, this is Ken Paxton's home turf, but really hasn't seen much from him. But candidates are definitely showing up here in North Texas.
Stay with us. We've got plenty more to discuss when Battleground Texas returns. Plenty of other scraps underway across Battleground Texas. What's catching your attention, Stephen?
Well, I'm up here in North Texas, so Texas District 33. That's that newly drawn district. Mark Vesey's no longer running. Julie Johnson is running, and she's running against Colin Allred, who dropped out of the race because Jasmine Crockett got in the Senate race. This race has started to get a little chippy. Julie Johnson pointing out, she told me in an interview this week that, in most cases, it's an incumbent versus a no-name. Now it's two former member of Congress and a sitting member of Congress. So both of them have a record. I'm looking at that race, Greg.
All right, Rudy, what are you following?
You know, it's been strangely quiet here in Central Texas with a lot of our state house district races as well as the congressional races. I'm anticipating something's got to pop soon. We just can't have this moment of silence going all the way into March, can we? So that's going to be real curious. But after March, I touched on this at the top of the show. How much money is going to be spread out into what races statewide from all that money that was collected from the quorum break? A lot of money, a record amount of money for the Democrats. Can that money really make a difference in a lot of these down ballot races, Greg?
Yeah, I got some interesting insight from a high-ranking Texas Republican official today in regard to the Republican primary for Attorney General. This person told me that Congressman Chip Roy's I guess public exposure, his name ID is exponentially higher than all of the other candidates. And he was suggesting that for sure someone like Mays Middleton would have to use his considerable fortune in this first round of the primary if he hopes to be in the final pairing. What do you think of that, Rudy?
Yeah, Chip Roy seems to be the guy to beat. But I think that February is going to really be the shaking out point for that race. It's do or die, February.
Yeah. Stephen, quick thought?
He's going by MAGA Mays. We'll